Let me see if we're still waiting for people here. So I think we are good. I just want to say that for those who doesn't know me, I'm Michael Pereira. I'm the one who been emailing everybody. I work for AAPPL. I'm also a Portuguese rater, and I just want to say that this is the last webinar with Ryan that we have today. He's going to be talking about the presentation writing, the PW. But for next week, we're planning to have office hours with the QA advisor for each language. So tomorrow we're gonna be opening the practice round for you to go and just put in practice everything that you learn with Ryan. And if you have any questions during the weekend, I would say that I'm gonna open a section in Schoology, so you're gonna be able to put your questions and see if you're interested in joining the office hour. And then I'm gonna trying to schedule that with the QA for your language. So let's see how that works for next week. But I just wanna say that we're gonna have that available for you as well next week, all right? I appreciate your time again here. Thank you, Ryan.
So for the QA sessions, have those been determined already, or those are going to be coming?
So these were still waiting for people to still join the program. There are some people who didn't. So we're hopeful that they're gonna be during the weekend, they're gonna join and go through the models and watch the video that I posted today in Schoology. So I think that I'm just gonna wait until Sunday and check how they are doing. And then I will gonna schedule like probably from Monday to Friday, like evening time, like we're doing today, for them to meet with the QA. So I haven't set up any time yet because I'm gonna see how many people will be interested in taking the office hour.
Okay, but they should check Schoology for that. That'll all be in Schoology?
That's correct.
Got it. Great. And Hisela is asking if the videos are there for people to rewatch.
Yes.
I saw the one was posted, right?
Yeah, I posted today. I sent that a notification and an email as well. I hope you received that. If you don't, in each model, we're gonna find a video there. I create a folder that says recording and the date and everything. So you're just gonna open and you're gonna be able to watch the video.
Great. Okay, I think we're ready to go then.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I know several of you have been with us last night and Tuesday night, so it's good to see your names again. For those of you who weren't with us on the other sessions, my name is Ryan Rockaitis. I am in Chicago. I am a high school Spanish teacher, and I have been rating the AAPPL assessment for the past several years. I'm also an OPI tester and trainer. So that's kind of how I started getting involved with AAPPL. But throughout the Rater certification process, I've said this last couple nights and just want to reiterate it, that we are here to support you. We want you to be successful. We want you to do well. We know it takes a lot of time and effort to go through the process, and we appreciate that. We appreciate your dedication to our language learners and to making sure that we are able to assess their proficiency in a meaningful way. So thank you up front, and just know we are here for you throughout this process. So like Michael said, today's focus is on presentational writing. Obviously we'll need to be referencing the ARC a little bit, but we're not going to go into an in-depth review of the ARC, because hopefully you'll always be using that document when you are assessing. But our goal is to look at a bunch of samples today and see if we're starting to get the hang of how we rate them. Okay, so Marjorie says she can't hear me. Okay, so let me know. Okay, let me just make sure everyone knows that I'm talking. You can hear me now? Okay, great. Okay. Let me just type here, can anyone not hear me? Okay, I'll try to speak up a little bit. I'm in a different room in the house, so maybe maybe my computer audio is not picking me up as well as it did yesterday. So is that better, Jennifer, if I speak up a little bit like that? Okay. How about now, Gisela? Is that a little bit better? Okay, thank you. If I fade off, just type in the chat. Let me know that I need to speak up, because obviously I want to make sure that you can hear me. Okay. So I was just saying we're going to be focusing on presentational writing today, and that our goal is to take everything we've learned with the ARC and apply it to the presentational writing part of the AAPPL assessments. So, okay. So yes, today we're talking about presentational writing. The prompts are real-world tasks, which assess functional writing ability in the target language. The prompts are written in English. Okay, so when the test taker is about to do the presentational writing, they do see the prompts in English. That way, they are not getting any of the target language in the prompt. And they're not able to use any outside resources, and the prompts are intentionally things that people might actually write about, things that they might actually deal with in their real lives, and as much as possible, they are intended to be age appropriate. Okay. We don't always know who's going to be taking which version of the assessment, but obviously we want them to be age appropriate. So the structure of the presentational writing is a little bit different than the interpersonal listening and speaking that we practiced yesterday. So just to recap, yesterday for the ILS, there was one task related to one topic. And then there are multiple responses to that. There are multiple responses to different questions on that topic. And we yesterday we listened to a bunch of examples, and we talked about how we listen to all of the responses, and we give one rating for all of the responses for that particular task. For presentational writing, there's one task, one response, one rating. Okay, so we're looking at each response individually. We don't need to click on different things and read different parts of the prompts in different places. One task, one response, one rating. Okay. So yesterday we heard that for the ILS, for the advanced tasks, there were 2 prompts that we would hear. For the presentational writing, there are always 3. Okay, so for the Form B, there are 3 tasks at the intermediate level and 3 at advanced. And then for Form A, there are 3 at novice and 3 at intermediate. Okay, so the format is a little bit different. Once again, I cannot emphasize this enough. When we are given a novice level task, we are only rating it compared to the novice criteria. Okay, so if there's a novice level prompt, and if I'm asking you a question that you can answer, with novice level language, if you give me past narration with multiple paragraphs, even though that's advanced level language, my question that I need to answer as a rater is, does it meet the criteria for novice? Okay. At the intermediate level, when I have an intermediate level task, I'm only assessing it with the intermediate criteria. How well does this response show me the intermediate criteria? Okay, we're not comparing apples and oranges. When it's an intermediate task, I'm rating it based on the intermediate criteria. Even if we have a superstar and they go above and beyond, I'm looking at the criteria for that particular level. And same thing with advanced. If I have an advanced level task, I'm rating it according to the advanced level criteria. There's a question, how does AAPPL guarantee that no outside resources are being used? So the assessment is proctored. There are some things in the assessment. For example, they can't go outside and click on another browser. If they open another browser, then they're locked out, and then the proctor has to go unlock them, so the proctor would know that they were going to another site. So there are things like that where they're not able to access other websites while they're online. And obviously, we really rely on the proctors to do their job as well. Okay, so once again, the same. This is something we talked about yesterday, also with the ILS. Whenever I am rating a response, my first question is, does it meet the criteria for that level? Okay, if it does meet the criteria, then I need to decide, does it meet the criteria minimally or fully? If it doesn't meet the criteria, is there some evidence, even though it's not sustained, even though it doesn't meet our requirements, or is there no evidence at all? Okay, similar to the other levels. Okay, I'm sorry, similar to the ILS that we talked about yesterday. Okay. Welcome somebody else in here. Okay. So once again, does it meet the level? If it does, how well? If it does not, is there some evidence or not? And we do that thinking of the features of each major level and also using the ARC, which you will be referring to throughout the rating process. Okay, and another reminder, we talked about this yesterday with the ILS, it also holds true for the PW, that if I'm rating a task as meets fully, it does not mean that that person is at the high sublevel. So for example, if there's an intermediate prompt and I rate it intermediate meets fully, I'm not saying that that person is an intermediate high. I'm just saying that the criteria for that level are met fully. Okay, some people who have gone through OPI training or who are very well versed in the proficiency levels, sometimes people have a common misconception that meets fully is equated with the high sublevel, but that is not the case. I'm listening to multiple prompts, rating them all based on the criteria, and then the algorithm will figure out what that final rating is. Okay, so let's go through and read some examples together. Once again, we focus on the criteria for each level. So here we have intermediate. We have the functions, creating with language to express personal meaning, ask and answer a variety of straightforward questions. The topics are personal activities, straightforward directions, things that they have personal experience with. And for the text type at the intermediate level, we are dealing with sentences and strings of sentences. And they're understood by those accustomed to communicating with language learners. Okay, so those are the intermediate criteria in a nutshell. Okay, and then the ARC is just different ways to say how well the response meets these criteria. Okay, so I know the ARC is pretty dense. There's a lot of information. It breaks it down by functions, text type, comprehensibility. There are the key features. There are tips. It's just different ways to think about these criteria and how they could, to what extent they are evident in the responses. Okay, so for presentational writing, if it meets level, then I have to decide if it meets minimally or meets fully. I'm not going to go through all these details now because we went through those in the ARC session. But like I said before, you will definitely want to have this handy as you are rating because there is a lot of information there. And we try to give you different ways to think about it to to see the differences between the different ratings we can give. Okay, and then if it does not meet level, our options are some evidence or no evidence. And here we have the ARC at the intermediate level. Okay, so once again, I recommend starting with the key features. That kind of gives you an overview of what you are looking for in the writing samples. There are some tips. Some of us who have done this for a while kind of have, we know the kinds of patterns we see. We know the typical markings of different ratings. So we try to give you every kind of resource we can to help you figure out the best way to rate the response. And then we break it down by function, text type, and comprehensibility. Okay, so at the intermediate level, I'm going to show you a response, and then we'll see what you all think. Okay, so this prompt is about questions. It's an intermediate prompt, so I'm only considering the intermediate criteria. Even if somebody goes above and beyond and gives me a dissertation with all time frames and multiple paragraphs, I'm only concerned about how well does it meet the intermediate criteria. Okay, so the situation is a teacher from Los Angeles is coming to visit your school. You will be introducing him or her to the members of the English Culture Club. You decide to write a letter to the teacher before the visit. Your task: write the part of the letter in which you ask a number of questions to help you to learn more about his or her job, interests, family, home, etc., in order to better prepare your introduction. So it's an intermediate task. The specific task is questions for a visiting teacher. So take a second and read your response. And with the presentational writing, there's one prompt, one response, and one rating. It's not like yesterday where we had to listen to several different responses and give an overall rating. We're just reading what's there and giving a response. This one's a little more straightforward. I'll give you a second to read it over and think through it. Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate all your help. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm seeing the responses coming in. So I've seen, okay, wow. I've seen meets fully, meets minimally, and some evidence. Okay, those are the different responses I've seen so far. Nobody has said no evidence. Okay, so you are correct that it is not no evidence. And I'm going to eliminate meets fully. So I'm going to eliminate meets fully just because, let's look at our criteria again. So consistent sentence production with a variety of sentence structures, detailed quality of language through details, and quality of language through a variety of grammatical structures or quality of vocabulary. I definitely do not see that. So I'm going to eliminate meets fully. Okay, so we're between meets minimally and some evidence based on your responses. Yes, Olga, we are going to get to those examples. Yes. Okay, so we are between some evidence and meets minimally. We have a little bit more time today because I don't need to play the audio files, and we're just giving one response at a time. So just in a nutshell, those of you who are so kindly typing in your responses, just in a nutshell and just a few words, can you just type in what's jumping out at you to make you think that it is some evidence or meets minimally? Because it looks like we're about evenly split there. So those of you who feel strongly one way or the other, is there something that's making you lean one way or another? If you would be so kind to just share. Okay, so let me see if I can move up here so I can see more of these comments. Okay, so I see things like lack of consistency, lots of listing as opposed to sentence formation, formulaic responses, sentence fragments, no connectors, inconsistent. So that's what I see. So I would rate this response some evidence. Okay, so let's talk through that a little bit. Some ability to create with language to express personal meaning in relation to the task and topic, or some ability to formulate questions when required. Okay, and that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for questions. So they have some other things here. The person lists all these different ethnicities, but all I'm really looking for are the questions. Okay, and are there some questions? Yes. Okay. However, let's look at what those questions are. What is your last name? What is the name of your dad? What is the name of your ma'am? What is the name of your school? What is your origin? So this person knows what is your blank, right? But over here, it's what your name. Okay, so I have what is your blank? What is your blank? What is the blank? What is the blank? What is the blank? Okay, so there is a very formulaic pattern in asking the questions. Okay. Let me see what else here is salient. So simple sentences, we do have a sentence fragment, what your name, and the questions that we do have are all very similar. There's not a lot of different kinds of questions, and it's really just one kind of question that the person knows. Okay, on my screen, your video is covering some of the text. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I have it supposed to be just sharing my second screen here. Does anybody else have my video covering some of it? I think you can move it. I think you can drag that little, okay, yeah, I think you can drag your, where you see our beautiful faces. I think you can move that over. Okay, great. Okay, so that is some evidence. Let's read another response. So once again, it's an intermediate task, so I'm only considering the intermediate criteria. The topic is school routine. The prompt is, a friend from New York is curious about what happens during a typical day at your school. Your task, write about what you do during a typical day at school. Write about your routine from the start of the day in the morning until the time you go home at the end of the school day. So take a second and read the response. And this one, it seems like we are more in consensus for this one. You are correct that this one is no evidence. Okay, so we have a list of classes and activities during the school day. We have some places where these activities take place, but we don't have any sentences. Okay, so this is a pretty clear-cut example of no evidence. And Alexander is trying to get the comedy award here. I think we should just eliminate you from consideration if you think that is meets fully. That's a pretty clear no evidence. Okay, there are no sentences at all. Okay. Let's move on to, I have someone buzzing in here. Okay, let me add somebody else in. Okay. Oh, I gave it away. I gave it away to you already. Okay, so here we have an example. I didn't mean to show you the rating already, but you have it there. So this is, again, questions, but this is an example of the difference in questions between the one we just saw a moment ago. So here we were asking for questions. This was some evidence. This was meets fully. So again, the task is to ask questions. Sometimes people give us more than that. People, are responding naturally. They give us more. They give us more than just the questions we're asking for. But if it's asking for questions, I'm really assessing the questions that are here. Okay. What are the questions that I see? When are you planning to return to school? Did you fall in love with Italy? Did you try any pasta at Italy? If you did, which one? Can you buy me a shirt from Italy? Okay, so we have several different questions to a variety of grammatical structures and quality of vocabulary. Okay, so it's not just some formulaic questions like what is your blank? We have, can you buy me a shirt? Did you try any pasta? And if you did, which one? Okay, so that is meets fully. Okay, good question. Good questions, very good questions. So would this be meets fully even if it were just questions? Yes. Yes, it would, because the prompt is asking for questions. Okay, we know a hallmark feature of intermediate is that you need to be able to ask questions. So that's why this is there, to see if the writer can write questions. So if it were just the questions, still meets fully. Okay, if it were just questions, but again, we don't have the details, if we don't have the more precise vocabulary like this one does, even if it's just questions, then it could still be meets minimally. If I had something like, do you like Italy? Are you buying a shirt? What do you do in Italy? So even if you remember meets minimally, means minimally. So if it were just short, discrete, simple questions, but still creating with language, more than just a memorized phrase. Do you like Italy? Do you like Rome? Do you like pizza? Okay, that would not be meets minimally. But if I had a variety of short, discrete questions, then that could be meets minimally. This example, where we have a variety of structures, we have the different time frames aren't a requirement. This could be all in present time and still be meets fully, but just the richness and variety of structures and grammatical structures and vocabulary merits this a rating of meets fully. Okay. Second part of your question, would it continue to be meets fully if no questions were included? And then no, it would not. Okay. Let me go back to our arc here. Let's see. So now we're looking at some evidence. Responses that show consistent sentence production, but without formulating any questions when required by a prompt, merit that some evidence rating. Okay, so if this person gave the response, gave an intermediate response, something that is clearly intermediate, but there are no questions, then that would be some evidence because they're giving me intermediate language, but not the questions that I'm asking for. Okay? That's why I think these rating tips are a new addition, and I think, like I said, the key features and the rating tips would be my suggestion for places to start, because these are all the things that those of us who have been doing this for years, these are all the things that always went through our mind when we were figuring out the rating, but they were never documented in the ARC. So now they are all there for you. So I know it makes for a lengthy document. I know, you know, there are several pages for each level, but once again, they're all just different tools to help you figure out to what extent the criteria are being met. Okay. So there we go. Those are our intermediate samples. Okay. Make sure I don't give anything away this time. So now let's go to advanced. Okay, so here we have a summary of the advanced criteria. So for every advanced prompt, I am considering how well these criteria are met, and only these criteria. And then the ARC is just helping us break down the different ways that we can rate it based on to what extent these criteria are met. So once again, just to recap, I know we've seen this over the past couple nights. The functions for advanced are narration and detailed description across all major time frames. There's elaboration, clarification, paragraph length production, and understood by those who are unaccustomed to communicating with language learners. Okay, people who are not teachers, who are not dealing with language learners, could understand these responses easily. Okay, so once again, the ARC gives us all of the details that we need. And once again, start with the key features, start with the rating tips, and then you can go to the functions, text type, comprehensibility to help you decide the rating. First, we decide, is it at level? Does it meet the criteria? Does it meet it minimally? Or does it meet it fully? Or if it does not meet the level, if it does not meet the criteria that we associate with advanced, then we have to decide, is there some evidence or no evidence? And once again, there's one piece of advice I would give you, just from my experience over the years helping people through the rating process, is don't overthink it. Really think about what we mean when we say no evidence, some evidence, minimally, fully. Some evidence means exactly that. There's some evidence. When I think of these criteria, it's there somewhere. I can point my finger someplace and say, oh, yeah, there's a little bit of that. Yeah, that's kind of starting to happen. There's some evidence, and that there's some evidence. If they're doing all of this, if there's no way I can justify that it's not advanced, if I say, oh, yeah, it's a short paragraph, but I guess it's a paragraph. Yeah, they're using has time to narrate, but it's just a short little paragraph, but it's a paragraph, then that's going to be meets minimally. And if there's no doubt in my mind, you go through all the criteria, they have it all, there's the elaboration, the details, then there's the rating will be meets fully. Okay, so let's look at an example. Okay, just make sure that everybody is in the room. I keep hearing people ringing the doorbell. Okay. Okay, so let's take a second and read. Let's look at the prompt together. So the topic is social media. It's an advanced level prompt, so when it says advanced, I know I'm only considering the advanced criteria. And the situation. You have been asked to write for your school's English newsletter about social media. Your task: write an article of several paragraphs in length in which you identify the social media that you or your friends most use and describe how it is used during a typical day. Provide a detailed account of a message or image that you received or read about on social media that was particularly memorable. Tell why it was memorable. And then 3, write about what you see as the future of social media. Okay, so take a second. I'll let you read through that response, and then we will rate it. Okay, so it looks like for the majority, we are between meets minimally and meets fully. Okay, and I agree that it is one of those responses. So before we go through to the response, let's look at the difference between meets minimally and meets fully. Okay, let's start with the key features. For meets minimally, ability to narrate in relation to the task and topic, a detailed description, ability to use all major time frames as required by the prompts, consistent paragraph production, comprehensible to a listener or reader who is unaccustomed to language learners. Okay. For meets fully, it's going to have all of those features with control of all major time frames that are required. Consistent paragraph production supported through elaboration, clarification, or other strategies. And the quantity of language through elaboration, clarification, or other strategies, and quality of language through control and variety of structures. Okay, let's look at these tips. Meets minimally, address the task and topic in paragraph form with cohesion, but may lack support through elaboration or clarification. For meets fully, with cohesion and support through elaboration, clarification, or other strategies. Okay, so looking, I'm glad to have you back, Eva. Looking at those rating tips and the key features, I would say that this response is meets minimally. Meets minimally. So I have a paragraph. Okay, so I have a paragraph. I was going to say something, but that might give away something for one of our next samples. So I'm not going to say that quite yet. So we have a paragraph, but for each part of the prompt, there's really not a lot. There's not a lot of elaboration, right? So provide a detailed account of a message or image that you received. The most memorable was a picture, and with a lot of my family at the party. The reason was that was the first night we had fun in a long time. This is due to not seeing them in a long time. Okay, so I have some sentences. The order of the sentences matter. Remember, that's a key feature of a paragraph, that I can't just rearrange the sentences. I can't start off by saying this was due to not seeing them in a long time. No, that's part of a narration. But how long is that narration? Okay, it's a couple sentences. They're related. It tells a little story. I can't say that's not a narration, but it's a minimal narration. Okay. What about the part about the future? The future of SoCal media will continue to grow and will maybe not stop for some time because a lot of people are getting into technology, and also there are always new forms of entertainment that people seek. So it's a little bit of a run-on maybe, but there is definitely the future. There's future time when asked for it. There is past time when that's asked for. There's a little explanation of social media, but all of them are just a minimal response of the criteria. It's more than just sentences. It's not just a string of sentences. It's not just Facebook is important. Facebook has pictures, period. No, there's a little paragraph. Okay, so remember, minimally means minimally. It has all the criteria. I can't say that this isn't a paragraph. I can't say that there's not consistent use of other time frames besides present, but it's just minimally. Okay. Okay, I'm just checking to see if there are questions. So please jump in at any point with questions, because this is all about making you feel confident in your rating ability. So if I'm looking over, I'm just scrolling through to see if there are any questions coming in. Okay, so let's look at another response. So the prompt is about summer break. It's an advanced prompt. The writer is asked to do 3 things. Describe a typical day during your summer vacation. Tell a story about something special you did during a recent summer vacation. Write about your plans for this coming summer. Okay. Take a second to read through that. Okay, I'm seeing lots of meets fullies, and that's what I would say as well. I would say this one is meets fully, okay? Just a note of caution, I see some comments about, and like I am too, I am impressed with the sophisticated grammar that is used here. There's a comment about she uses future, past tense, progressive tenses, and yes, it is all true, but even to be meets fully, all I'm looking for is that, like it says here, I'm looking for variety of structures, vocabulary, and connectors. It doesn't need to be all of these. I teach Spanish, so those are the examples that I'm coming with. But sometimes, you know, we think of subjunctive and the conditional and the imperfect subjunctive, and those are the things that, you know, we sometimes hear people associate with, you know, advanced level, but those are not necessary to be advanced, okay? We don't even talk about tenses, we talk about time frames. So present time, past time, future time. Again, I apologize for the non-Spanish speakers, but I know in Spanish we have, you know, the future and we have the simple future. You know, I can say I will go and I am going to go. I will travel. I am going to travel. Those are both equally acceptable to express future time. Okay, so I know sometimes we see some samples that impress us with all of the grammar that people are able to use but it's not necessary even to be considered meets fully. Okay. And one other thing, I hesitated to use this sample because even for meets fully, we don't always get this much text. Okay, so here we have three really distinct paragraphs. It does not need to be this extensive to be meets fully. Okay, I chose this one because it was a clear example, but I was a little hesitant because I thought people are going to think it has to be that much language. It doesn't even, it needs the whole screen for that to fit. So let's just look at a couple key features of meets fully. So like it says here at the rating tip at the bottom. It is possible for one very well-developed paragraph to include narration and a detailed description, both supported through various strategies. So even if there's just one paragraph, but it shows the narration, it shows detailed description, it shows cohesion, it shows the time frames, it's easily comprehensible, it could still be meets fully. Okay, so I just want to make that clear that here the writer gives us three distinct paragraphs. Okay, it clearly meets fully. But even if the writer combined this into one paragraph, maybe it was significantly shorter than the amount of text we have here. But if it has all the features with the details, with the elaboration, with the time frames, that could still be meets fully. Okay. Let's see. Would it be fair to say that the presentational writing is rated a little bit stricter? I would not. I would not, because I don't consider the idea of assessing it strictly does not even come to mind for me. Okay, I'm looking at the criteria and the way it is, the evidence I see of the criteria and the consistency of it in the sample. With the ILS, I'm listening to various responses and I'm taking them as a whole. Okay, so for the writing, I'm looking at one response and giving that a rating. So I can only assess what's there. Okay, for the ILS, they have multiple opportunities and I'm assessing them as a whole. So I don't know if that's part of what you're thinking of as being stricter. But the concept of grading or assessing it more strictly does not seem to be, it's not something I consider. Okay. The ILS production seems shorter than the PW. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Okay. Back in the day, there would be more responses for each prompt. They shortened it up a little bit, but sometimes it'll be an intermediate prompt, and you'll be sitting there, and they go on and on and on and on. I forget the exact amount of time that they are recorded. But they have a significant amount of time. So some of the samples that we listened to yesterday, we're kind of shortened to the point, for our training purposes. But sometimes you will get a much longer sample. Okay. Let's see. And I do not remember offhand, Marjorie. I apologize. I do not know exactly how long the responses are, but sometimes they can go on for a little bit. You'll hear that in all of your rating that you will be doing. Okay, so we have one more advanced prompt, or one more sample, I should say. So it's the same topic about summer vacation. Tell a story about something special you did during a recent summer vacation. Be sure to provide lots of details right about your plans for this coming summer. Let's take a moment and look at this example. I'm sorry, we have two more advanced samples. So this one and then one more. Okay, I'm just waiting for people's responses to come in. I've seen several different ratings. The majority seem to be between some evidence and meets minimally. Okay. And I believe it was Ava who commented with a very important observation. Okay. Student does not answer the plans for next summer. The student also does not, yes, thank you, 3 tasks, only 1 is somewhat complete. Okay, so if I were just looking at the sample, if I didn't know what the prompt was, if I didn't know, the 3 parts of the task, if I were just reading that paragraph, I would say, yeah, there's a lot of advanced kind of stuff going on there, right? There's definitely past time. There's some description. Homemade burgers taste the best when you can choose whatever you want to put on it. So it's not just really simple sentences. There are there's description and elaboration. However, what was the task? The task is not met. There's no mention of a typical day during the summer vacation, and there's no mention of plans for this coming summer. Okay, so is there some advanced level stuff going on? Yeah. Is it there consistently throughout the parts of the prompt? No. Okay, so I would say that this one is some evidence. Okay. Okay, so some evidence of paragraph production, but it's not consistent. Okay, in this case, it's not consistent because it's only for one part of the prompt. Okay, so, and we can't tell ourselves sometimes as nice people, sometimes as language teachers who are always looking for the best in students, which of course in our classrooms we want to do that. Sometimes we say, well, that number 1 wasn't there, but if he could write this, I'm sure he could do that first part. But we can't go there. We have to assess what is there in front of us. Okay. So what is there is a paragraph about one part of the prompt, but to be consistent, I need to see that throughout the different parts of the task. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. Somebody said, I'm afraid I interpret too much. That means you are a lovely person, and I'm sure if you are a teacher, your students love you and love that support, and that's why they want to strive to reach high levels of language proficiency. But that's not our job when we are rating an assessment. Okay, we are rating what is there, what is in front of us at the moment. Okay, and then we have one more example of advanced, and then the novice will be shorter. You're not mean, Gisela. Okay. So again, the same prompt about summer break, a typical day, what you did on a recent, during a recent summer vacation, and then plans for the summer. Okay, and we seem to be in agreement on this one, that this is no evidence, and I would agree. Okay. So let's look at these rating tips at the bottom. Even if there is some ability to use past or future time, but there's not an organized paragraph, that would be no evidence. Okay. So even if for asking for narration, if there's some ability to narrate, but it's not in an organized paragraph, then that's going to be no evidence. Okay. Yes, I did see that question. I will get that question in one moment. Yes, I saw that as you were reading. I didn't want to interrupt the readers. Okay. So let's actually go back a little bit here. Okay. I'm just trying to find the most helpful place for you all. Okay, so consistent paragraph production meets minimally. Okay, so what does it mean to be consistent? So I would say to be consistent means more than one paragraph, right? If for this sample here, where was this the right one? Yes, so the student only writes about the second part of the prompt, okay? If there were two short paragraphs, but paragraphs, I could say they're paragraphs, I could say they're cohesive, I could say they have organization to them, they're not just strings of sentences. If there were two paragraphs that that were paragraphs, even if they're skeletal paragraphs, even if there wasn't a lot of detail, but I could say, yeah, I guess this is a paragraph, and yeah, there's no reason I can't say that, there's no reason I can say that this is not a paragraph. And well, there's two of them, so okay, yeah, there's a paragraph here, there's a little paragraph there. Okay, he consistently wrote paragraphs over different prompts, then I would give that a meets minimally. Okay, so it's still minimally. Okay, he didn't respond to all three parts of the prompt, but again, what does minimally mean? It means minimally. Okay, so it says consistent paragraph production. Okay, there are two of them. I wish you would have written the third, but there are two of them. Okay, there's a paragraph here, there's a paragraph there. Okay, that's going to be meets minimally. Okay. And as I keep saying over and over and over, the last couple of days we've been looking at a few samples together. You know, the more you do this, the more you look at the arc, the more you start seeing the patterns, the more it's going to start to click. Okay, I know we're throwing a lot of stuff at you right now. And I personally am having flashbacks to when I was in your shoes going through the same process that, you know, it takes time. It takes time to get the hang of it. And it's a different system than maybe what you use in your classroom, than maybe what you know from other language assessments that you may have used throughout your careers. But it takes time to get the hang of how we break it down. Okay, so now we have novice. Okay, so novice is the shortest amount of text that we're going to be analyzing, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily an easy thing to assess. You know, it's there have been more than one rater who has said to me, I had so much trouble with the novice. I thought novice was going to be the easiest. I thought, you know, novice was the hardest one for me. And I say, well, that makes sense, because for all the other levels, for advanced, we have paragraphs, we have lots of language, and we can divide that into 4 ratings, you know? For intermediate, I'm looking at sentences and how well they create sentences and strings of sentences, and I can classify that into 4 categories. But for novice, what is our text type? Our text type is just words and list of words. I'm not even expecting sentences. So how do I classify that into meets minimally, meets fully, some evidence, and no evidence? Okay, so If you are scratching your head at some of the novice ratings, know that that is not uncommon because there's not a lot of language that we have to put into these 4 different ratings. Okay, so once again, if it's a novice level prompt, I'm only considering these criteria, even if it's a novice level prompt and the student gives me a response that has lots of characteristics of intermediate or even advanced. I'm not looking at those other criteria. I'm just comparing the response to the novice level criteria if it's a novice level prompt. So here we have the arc for meets minimally and meets fully. And if it does not meet level, is there some evidence or is there no evidence? And again, is there no evidence or some evidence of what? Is there some evidence of lists? Is there some evidence of a word? Is there some evidence of a formulaic exchange? Is there something there where I can point my finger and say, oh, it's not consistent, but there's something here that meets the criteria? Or am I searching and searching, saying, you know, there's not a single thing here. I can't even say that there's one place where this criteria is met. Okay, so we have a few examples. For novice, our first sample, what are some things you do on a Saturday or Sunday morning? How are weekend mornings different from weekday mornings? And this was a novice level task, so I'm only considering the novice level criteria. I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee because I know it's gonna take you a while to read this response, right? I'm just kidding. This is where you all make me so proud and so happy. Those of you who were on the session last night, you were listening. You were listening. Some evidence. Some evidence. Yes, this was some evidence. And why is that? Okay. The text type for some evidence, an isolated word or words. Okay. Thank you, Marjorie. So when we look at these criteria, some evidence just means I can point my finger someplace and say, yeah, they're kind of doing this here. It's not consistent, but there's someplace where they do it. And at the novice level, we're talking about words, right? So is there a word or words in the target language related to the task or the topic? We had that example yesterday for ILS where it was asking, I think, about the weather, and the only word that we had in the target language was summer. So it was just kind of tangentially related to the topic or task, but it was related. So some things you do on a Saturday or Sunday morning, church. An isolated word related to the topic, some evidence. Okay. Another example, novice. Some people are very hard to buy presents for. Are you? Write in your journal about some things that would make good gifts for you. And there's the response. And we seem to be in agreement here that this is no evidence. Okay, and I put that one in on purpose because usually after this response, people say, if that's no evidence, or I'm sorry, if that's some evidence, if church, just one word, that's some evidence, then what the heck's no evidence? This is what no evidence is. I don't know, or if it's a blank, or when I'm rating a Spanish assessment, if they say, I don't know in English, for their Spanish assessment, or even if they say, I don't know in the target language, then there's no evidence. Tricky? It's not tricky. No, I'm just kidding. I'm using these examples because these are the things that come up year after year. You know, these are the things that come up year after year. So, especially at novice, because like I said, it's not uncommon for people to say, wow, the novice level is the one that stumped me. That's where I didn't think that would be the one that was challenging. But it's just because there's such a little sample of language that we are using to come up with the rating. Okay. Okay, we have one more, I think one more rating. Okay, so again, the same, is this the same exact prompt or a similar prompt about birthday? Okay, some people make a list of things they want for their birthday. Do you? Carol, your American Facebook friend, wants to know what you want for your birthday. Send Carol an email with information about gift items that you like. Okay, and for the most part, we seem to be in consensus that this would be meets fully. That's what I would say. Some people sometimes ask about if there are some words that like brand names, or if there are words in again, if I'm rating a Spanish sample and then there are some words in English, so if they're kind of using Spanglish. If I'm rating a Spanish response and there are some words that are in English, I just pretend they're not there. If I took those words out, if I just crossed them out, if I just whited them out, if I just crossed them off and pretended they didn't even exist, what is the evidence of what the student is able to do in the target language? Okay, so there are some things there. Maybe sometimes this is where we talk about comprehensibility, right? This word here. Does anybody know what that means? I don't, because I really don't know what the person's trying to say there in here. These two words. Sometimes tables. Oh, tables. Oh, table food. Table. Okay. Okay. So even with my Spanish, I was saying tabals. What's tabals? Table food. Okay, I could see that. Okay, so that was, for me, that was not comprehensible. Buy. Okay, buy some decorations. Okay, good. So this is what we mean by having to be a sympathetic reader or listener. Okay, so we did not have an example of meets minimally, but what would meets minimally look like? So here we have in our key features, it says for meets fully, it has both features of meets minimally plus the ability to use more than one function. Okay, whereas meets minimally, it's just going to be like it says here, ability to demonstrate one function at the novice level. So a list of words, common phrases, formulaic sentences or questions, as opposed to more than one of the novice level functions, okay, related to the task and the topic, okay, and meets minimally task or topic. So going back to the sample here, if the topic were, I'm sorry, if the response just said, it was literally just a list, okay? So if it was just a list that had slime, candy, cake, food, chicken, decorazione, unicorn, if it just had a list, so even though it's just listing, then that could be meets minimally. For meets fully, we have some formulaic exchanges. Thank you for helping me. We have, hey Carla. So we have a list, but we also have a little bit more. Okay, so that's why it's meets fully. Okay. So spelling, the spelling count. Okay, so the spelling count, that's another common question. So there's nothing in the ARC about spelling, right? What is in the ARC? Comprehensibility. Okay, so like I said in this example here, I did not know what taibals meant. Okay, and that, why was that? It was because of the spelling, right? So in this case, if let's say there was just a list of, if there's a list of 2 words, okay, if there were 2 words and one of them was taibals, that, okay, I would not give that anything more than some evidence, because if there were 2 words and one of them was taibals, I don't know what that means because of the spelling. Okay, if there's something here like chicken, that I understand. Okay, so that spelling, is it the correct spelling? No, but does it affect my comprehensibility as a sympathetic reader? Okay, as a sympathetic reader, I understand that. Taibals, I did not understand. Okay, and again, the same thing about accent marks. Same thing about accent marks. How does it affect the comprehensibility? Okay, a lot of times if I look at a paragraph, I think if somebody wrote that paragraph, even at the advanced level, even if there were spelling issues, even if there were accent marks that were not used accurately, if you show that to another speaker of that language, would the person be able to understand it, or does it cause problems? There are, again, my examples are in Spanish because that is the language for which I rate, but there are, examples where whether or not you have an accent mark, it changes the meaning. So in that case, if it causes confusion, then that would affect the rating. But if it doesn't impede my comprehensibility, then it's not gonna affect the rating. When we talk about proficiency, we use the analogy of a tree. The trunk of the tree is the function. Okay, so what can they do with the language? The branches are the text type. So we have some paragraphs that are the big limbs. We have some sentences that are the branches. We have some little twigs, which are the words. And the leaves are the accuracy. So I live in Chicago. I love the fall. I love the beautiful leaves that I have all around my neighborhood right now. I love the leaves. They're beautiful. If I could have a tree with the leaves or without the leaves, I would definitely pick the tree with the leaves. But in the winter, when the leaves fall off, it's still a tree. So if I have the function, I have the text type, if some of the spelling and the accent mark is not there and it doesn't impede the comprehensibility, then that's all I need to consider. Oh, thank you, Nelly. I love that one. I can't take credit for it. I don't know who first used it, but in my in my school where I teach, they get sick of me saying, what's the function? What's the function? The function is the trunk of the tree. What's the function? Because it is the function that really drives everything. Okay, and like I said, the leaves, would I rather have a tree with leaves or without? I like the leaves. In my classes, do I have students work on accuracy? Do I have them work on correct spelling? Do I make them go back and write the correct accent marks? Yes, I do all those things because I want them to have as many leaves as possible on their beautiful tree. But at the end of the day, when I'm assessing them, when I'm rating them for the apple, does it affect our criteria? Okay. So I have a few more minutes. I will stay on for a few more minutes if anybody has any questions. Let's see, I think that's all I had for you today. Yes. So like Michael said, I believe the practice round, I think you said, is going to be open soon. Once people go through that, we will see what kinds of questions come in. And there are quality assurance leads for each of the languages of the apple. We were all together in August, so even though I was leading these presentations in English, these are all concepts that we worked through together in creating this revised ARC. We all had a say and a voice in this, so even if you're talking to somebody next week who rates for a different language, we are all coming from the same place. We are all working with the same ARC. If you are a Spanish rater, as I know some of you are, Angela Gardner is another Spanish language QA lead for Spanish, so she and I will be available if you have questions. And then for your other languages, Michael will put you in touch with the other QA leads so that you can get answers that are specific to your language. Okay, yeah, I'll stay on for a few minutes. I saw somebody had a question from last night. Yes, please do. And Jessica, if you want to, if it's easier for you to type, or if you want to just speak, unmute yourself and speak, that's fine too.
That's all right.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your kind comments. I love doing this because I remember how I felt when I did this, and just your dedication to the process and wanting to make sure we have a great way to acknowledge all our students' growth in language is amazing, and we couldn't do it without you. So we want to be here to support you through the process. Okay. So yeah, if you have a question and if you'd prefer to speak or just type, I will. People are writing lots of things, so I'm trying my best to scroll through the comments, or just type whatever's easier for you. Okay, so the slides from tonight and the last 2 nights today. Michael sent an email today, and it had Schoology on there. I haven't gone to Schoology today, but I did get an email notification that Michael had posted the previous webinar. So I believe you'll find that in Schoology. But I can actually look at that in a moment and see if it's there for you. But I know he did post that. And yes, Jessica, if you have your question.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, yes, Jessica. Thank you. Thank you for your
Hi, thank you. This has been great.
Oh, I'm glad.
My question from last night, I didn't quite see the advanced prompt for the one that you gave us the script about learning Chinese versus the audio about holidays. The girl mentioned that her favorite holiday was the 4th of July and she went to the beach. I didn't see how the learning Chinese answer was no evidence versus I think she met, I don't remember exactly if there was some evidence or meets minimally.
Okay, let me open up that one. Do you remember what the level of that?
About learning Chinese was written. We saw the script.
Okay. Do you know what level was it? Advanced?
It was advanced. Both of them were advanced.
Thank you. So one was about learning Chinese and the other one was?
Was the audio about holidays.
Okay. Oh, the one that we actually listened to.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't have that audio
That
queued
one.
up
That
today.
one. You
But
just
so
passed.
we can
You just passed the
Okay.
one.
This one here?
Yeah, that was the answer.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
it
so
says
let
does not
me look at the
meet.
prompt. So the prompt was, tell me, why did you decide to study Chinese? Why did you make that decision? And then an occasion when you needed to speak Chinese. Okay. And this was some evidence. Okay, so let me read through this again. I learned Chinese because I am also Asian. I like Chinese, but I feel my own Chinese is not very good. It is poor in many places, so I want to learn to better improve my Chinese speaking ability to make it better so I can work in China. Okay. And then there are many different situations in my life. Okay, so this one is some evidence because,
I thought it says does not meet.
pardon me?
I thought it says does not meet.
Does not meet level. So it does not meet all, it does not meet all the criteria of advanced. So there's some evidence there. So remember when we find this other slide, there's so many slides.
I thought it was, I guess I thought it was rated as no evidence.
No. Okay, so if, so the, does the examinee, does it meet the criteria? If it meets the criteria, then it's minimally or fully. If it doesn't meet all the criteria, then I have to decide is it some evidence or no evidence. So that was saying that it doesn't meet all the criteria. So it's either some evidence or no evidence. And in that case, it was some evidence. So it doesn't meet all the criteria. So it can't be meets minimally. It can't be meets fully. But there is some evidence. Okay, so let's not do that. There it is. Okay, so it doesn't meet the level, so it's not meets minimally, it doesn't meet all the criteria, either minimally or fully, but there is some evidence.
Okay.
So
I just kind of saw both as the same, and when the girl was speaking, I guess it was rated one higher than this one, and I don't see much of the difference between the two. So I guess we would have to listen to it.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get those queued up for today. I have to go into another system for those.
Okay, no, that's all right.
But let's see, that was, do you remember what that prompt was about? No, you just told me. Do you remember what was that prompt about?
It was the holidays, and she mentioned it was that one. That one was the holiday.
This one was some evidence. Okay, this one was also some evidence.
But they were both some evidence. Okay, so then I didn't
in your mind,
that.
in your mind, were they
the same?
Was your question? Then you are right. You got it.
Yeah, I guess I just missed it.
I think it was the way that slide was labeled. Okay, because it was saying that it doesn't meet the criteria. So if it doesn't meet all the criteria, then it can't be meets minimally. It can't be meets fully. It's kind of it's in that bottom half.
Okay.
So you are absolutely correct that those two receive the same rating.
Okay. Now I can sleep better. Last night I kept on thinking I saw them as the same. So, well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for your time.
What language will you be rating?
Spanish.
Okay, great. So maybe our paths will cross again. And if at any point you have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out, okay?
Okay, and when did you say that the practice round is going to be posted?
I believe Michael said, I believe he said tomorrow is what
okay.
I'm actually opening up Schoology right now just to see if everything's there. But it should be soon. I think it's tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
And I have a question.
Yes.
It is regarding the questions, asking questions
Okay.
that we see in PW.
Yes.
It's about the quantities. How many questions? I remember in the early training, somehow I have a vague kind of impression. You need to have a certain amount of questions to qualify as MF mid fully, like 7 questions for mid fully. If it is like a 3
So the
questions.
ARC does not say it doesn't say a number of questions. Okay, so what, so let me go back to today's question. So the questions come in at the intermediate level. Okay, so if we're deciding between, let's say, meets minimally and meets fully, okay. In no point does it say if I'm deciding between MM and an MF, at no place does it say a number of questions that I need to read. However, what does it say? So it says consistent production, okay? So if there's one question, I wouldn't say that's consistent. So, you know, to be meets minimally, I would need a few questions. The one example that we saw today,
So you say a few questions.
But so, and again, I know I'm being vague, but so here we can say, do you still see my screen? Can you see the screen with the same? Okay. So here, somebody might look at this and say, this has a lot of questions, okay? What is the name of your school? What is the name of your mom? What is the name of your dad? What is your last name? What is your origin? Somebody might say, look, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, 6, 7 questions. Somebody might look at that and say, there are 7 questions here. But then we have to ask ourselves, again, what's the trunk of that tree? What's the function? What is this person able to do? They're able to say, what is, and put something after it. Okay? So that's why we don't quantify it with a number, because here, you know, if I said you need 7 questions, somebody could look at this and say, oh, there are 7 questions. But what is this person able to do? Are they able to consistently ask, again, let's look at our criteria. Is there consistent sentence production? Ability to formulate questions in relation to the task and topic? I would say this person that we just saw is able to ask 1 question. That question is, what is, fill in the blank, okay? Whereas somebody who is able to give me a few questions, so what is the name of your mom? Where do you live? What do you do after school? Okay, so those are a couple different questions. That would be meets minimally. Meets fully, going to have more variety and variety in sentence structure, variety in vocabulary. I'm going to have that extra layer for the meets fully. Okay, with those details. Okay, so I know that's purposely vague because I don't want you to be counting questions. I want you to think when I look at whether there's 3 questions or if there's 12 questions, what is that person able to show me? Okay, so if I have 3 questions, but they are questions with many parts to them, and they are sentences with, it's very rich, elaborate language where they're showing you different language structures, different vocabulary, and maybe there are only 3 or 4 questions. That could very well be a meets fully. Somebody could have 10 questions and not be meets fully because they're really just saying the same thing and filling in a blank at the end.
Right. Okay. And how about the speaking one? The 3 prompts, we've seen the cases. The performance is not even. In one prompt. The person can answer, can say a lot, but the other two almost very simple, very almost like a blank or not much. For such very extreme case, what do we do?
Okay, very good question, because very good question. Because the examples we're using today, we're trying to, you know, give you clear examples. But when you are actually rating, you are going to hear all different kinds of things, and you're going to say, Ryan never showed us one like that. So what do I do? So again, the key is what does the person do consistently? For the speaking prompts, for example, an intermediate prompt where there are 3 different responses, okay, I want to see what does that person do consistently. So the example you just gave was 1, they do a great job, and then the 2, there's nothing there, or it's off topic, or there's really no evidence there. Okay, so if I have 1 response that's amazing, and then 2 that don't meet the criteria, again, for meets minimally, we need to see what they can do consistently, right? So I'd say 1 great prompt is not going to show that consistency. So I would give that some evidence. There's some evidence that they can do it, but it's just not sustained. But now, if there are 2 responses, if there are 2, and if it's an intermediate prompt and I'm looking for a sentence, there's first response, they give me a couple sentences that are appropriate. Another response, they give me a couple sentences that are appropriate, and the third one, they don't say anything. Then I would probably say that meets minimally, because it's consistent over a couple different prompts. There are sentences they're creating with language, so that would probably be a meets minimal.
But for novice level, that's a hard one. If for 1 prompt they say a lot, you already think that's a meet fully.
But again, the same idea. Can they do it? Can they do it consistently? Okay. And all the prompts are when you listen to the 3 different parts, they're all related to the same topic. Okay. So I'm asking different things about that topic. At novice, you're right. We're listening for just words, phrases. So I do take it as a whole. If they're able to give me a list of words and some maybe memorized phrases, some memorized sentences, then I listen to that all as a whole. But if, like you said, novice, there's such little language that for no evidence, there's really nothing at all. If I have 1 word over those 3 prompts that's related to the topic, then that's going to be some evidence. And if there's a few words, even if it's just a list related to the topic, then that would be meets minimally.
Okay, thank you so much for your
You're very welcome. What is your language?
Chinese.
Chinese. 不客气。
谢谢。Okay, thank you. Good night.
再见。
再见。
Okay, so I'll just stay on for another second or 2 if there are any last questions. I see a few people are left. Otherwise, thank you for joining us this evening. This will be posted with the other webinars, and please check Schoology for updates. And thank you again for all you're doing for AAPPL and the AAPPL assessment, and most especially for all of our language learners who are striving to reach higher levels of proficiency. We can't do it without you. Thank you so much. Good night.